From sea to shining sea, America's favorite uncle, Bumpkin Bob.
Hey y'all, it's Bumpkin Bob coming to you from the Bumpkin Media Studios here in Silo Springs, Arkansas. Hey, we have had a good month here at Bumpkin Media. The last month we've got a lot of rain, and we've got a lot to get to today, so let's jump right in the middle of it. One thing I'm going to say, because you're going to see me doing this today during the show, is I got me a little glass right here of Post Wine, and my buddy Donovan, if you're out there watching, you need to hook us up with a tour so we can come down there and tour the Post wineries. Maybe that'd be pretty cool to get on film. So that everybody's aware of it. Here, the 12th of May, next weekend coming up, we are going to be over at the Natural Bridge of Arkansas to see that thing. So if anybody's watching this, come join us over there at the Natural Bridge. Probably going to try to get over there Saturday morning, the 12th. So like I said, if you get a chance, come join us. Let's start off with this. We are finishing up a job, and it never fails to amaze me on the back end of jobs how things that architects didn't catch and owners didn't catch. I mean, they start in once they move in the building, finding things that they don't like or that they should have put in, and superintendents and general contractors just act like all the tradesmen, all they want to do is work Saturdays. Well, let me tell you something. I don't want to work Saturdays, so quit volunteering me for that shit. You know, if there's something they don't like or that they want that didn't get put in, then they can make time during the week for us to get in there and do it. I mean, if they have to clear out a room, make some sacrifices here and there, then they can do that. It's not, they almost act like it's the tradespeople and subcontractors' faults that things got left out. And it's not. That is on the architect and the owner or whoever your building rep was that was viewing those plans from the architect. And it's like, just a point. I don't want to make nobody mad, but I don't mean this sexist, because it's not just what you're going to think I'm saying. I'm just using this as an example because it doesn't matter. But medical clinics, I don't know who gets to review your plans, but it never fails once we get in, the office managers and the staffs and the nurses start in about, I don't know why you did this, and I need this put over here, and I need that put over there. We put it where the architect told us to put it, and we did it because whoever is your building, your rep, approved those plans. And it's like, quit acting like the subcontractors did it just to piss y'all off. Because we didn't. That's the way the plans were sent to us. That's the way we bid them. And that's where we put them. So if you got a problem with that shit, it's your architect's fault and or your building's rep. And it doesn't matter if it's a regular office, a doctor's office, a grocery store, whatever. There's going to be things that don't fit your criteria, your personal criteria. Not my problem. But quit acting like we want to work on weekends. I don't want to work on weekends. I'll just be honest with you. So quit volunteering me for that shit. And if there's something you want, then you need to make sacrifices so that I can get in and do my job to give you your extra outlet or whatever it is you want. That's my little bitch for the day, I guess, so to speak. Or one of my little bitches for today. My second little bitch for the day is the Stormy Daniels shit. I am so tired of hearing about that, I could just spit. It's like, I don't give a shit what Trump did with Stormy Daniels. I don't care who paid her off. My opinion, she took $130,000 and signed a no disclosure agreement. She broke the law as far as I'm concerned. You know, she had sex with him or didn't have sex with him. She still signed the consent form. And I'm not sure where her motivation is now, unless it's she wants more money, is coming from. To me, that's probably what happened. He got elected president. She decided she wanted some more money. So to me, this is like blackmail. Maybe they ought to be looking at her for that. And the Russian probe by the I get so mad I can't even talk. By the special prosecutor, Mueller, I'm so tired of that I could spit too. It's like he's dragging that out because he's drawing a paycheck. And it's like he's just wasting taxpayers' money. And they need to nip that shit in the bud and be done. Nip that shit in the bud. Nip that shit in the butt. Whatever. They need to nip it, snip it, and whip it. Whatever needs to be done with. Because he's just drawing a check. Let's take a little drink of the Post wine. Shout out to Post Winery. And yeah, I like it on the ice. So if that's not how you drink wine, I don't give a shit. Because most people that know me, I pretty much do whatever I want, the way I want to do it. That's just the way I am, pretty much. Hey, we are going to show you right now our second installment of our journey down the White. So sit back with me for a moment, watch this video, this little clip, and we'll be right back with you in a few minutes. Hey y'all, this is Bumpkin Bob. Welcome to our second episode of Journey Down the White. We're standing on the shores of Table Rock Lake here in Beaver, Arkansas, and behind me you'll see the suspension bridge over Table Rock Lake. This is the only suspension bridge in the state of Arkansas still open to vehicular traffic. It was built in 1949 by a company out of Malvern, Arkansas. And the story behind this bridge is the Corps of Engineers, construction was delayed a little bit because after it got started, the Corps of Engineers ran in here and said, oh, wait a minute. This is going to end up being a lake and that bridge needs to go up 40 feet. So the bridge was actually moved up 40 feet from its original location. Now we're gonna journey from here, show you a little bit of footage of this. Over the next few minutes, we're gonna talk to you about some of the dams that are here. We got Beaver Dam, Table Rock Lake Dam, and then we're gonna show you some beautiful footage from our trip on the only ferry that I know of in the state of Arkansas, maybe in the lower 48s. Now you get over on the west coast, there might be some, but this ferry actually ferries you from one side of Bull Shoals Lake to the other. And it's pretty cool to ride on. It's cool for adults. It's really not that long of a ferry ride, but kids would probably actually eat this up. So if you got kids or grandkids, after you watch this episode of Journey Down the White, bring them up here it's actually over at Peel, Arkansas, and take them across the ferry at Bull Shoals. It's free, y'all. Doesn't cost you a dime. You just sit there at the stop sign and wait. And when they get the ferry dock and the cars that are on take off, you pull on and they take you right across Table Rock Lake, sitting in your car. So sit back and enjoy the views from a journey down the White. Hey, here we are crossing Bull Shoals Lake on the ferry at Peel, Arkansas. Hey, this dam on this lake was started in 47. Lake has over 700 miles of shoreline, a lot of recreational stuff to do. So you really need to get over and cross this thing. Take Highway 125 through Peel, it'll get you right there. And this ferry has actually been running since the 1800s. It was originally a wooden craft across the White River. And then when the lake was built, it changed to this barge-style craft. And if you didn't have this thing to cross Bull Shoals, you'd have to drive over 50 miles to get to the other side and get over to Missouri. So, I mean, this thing really helps out. The only time they close it, it's open year round, is for dense fog or high wind. So if you want to do anything, you got to get over there and do that. I mean, it is really cool sitting in the driver's seat watching this. Just awesome. So make sure you get over there and do that. It's Peel, P-E-E-P-E-E-L or P-E-L-L. Hey, y'all, I hope y'all enjoyed that. We really and truly enjoyed going over there and doing that. And we went over to Eureka Springs and saw that suspension bridge, and then drove over to Peel, Arkansas, went across that ferry. We actually went across it twice. But me and Luke had a blast that day. Basically spent Friday, and I know I said this in the clip, but if you've got kids or grandkids, or hell, if you're just a kid at heart, go over there and ride that ferry before it becomes financially unfeasible for them to keep doing that. I know I said it in the video, but I want to say it again. It's free. Just go over there, ride it one time, or do like we did. Go across. There's a park on both sides. Go up there and turn around in the park and come back and ride it back the next time. You'll kill a couple hours doing it, but it'll be worth it, because especially if you live in Arkansas, lived in Arkansas your whole life, don't travel much, it'll probably be the only chance you get. And while we're talking about travel, I'm gonna tell a little story. This is our funny story for the day. I went to dinner, and this has been several years ago, with a cousin of mine and her husband, and then my sister and brother-in-law. Well, I was already kind of feeling like the fifth wheel, kind of, because I'm single and I wasn't dating anybody. And we went over here to AQ Chicken over here in Springdale and ate. And but anyway, we're sitting there eating, and they're talking about their trips to Europe, because in their jobs, basically, all four of them have had a chance to travel to different parts of Europe. So, that's what the whole topic of conversation was everybody going to Europe and the different things they had seen, and, the different countries they've been to and all this. So I was feeling a little left out, I will admit. I'm just kind of sitting down there at the end of the table, listening to it, minding my own business. And I kind of caught a break there in the action. And I said, I went to Tulsa one time, and literally all four of them went. And then just turned back and went back to talking. It was like, I found it hilarious, But those of you who know me know that I kind of find my own humor here and there, kind of thing, because that's just the way I am. I mean, I'm kind of a funny guy. Anyway, we're going to move on to another topic. I don't know that we could call that our job site tale for the day, because it really wasn't on a job site, but they were all talking about their travels for their jobs and vacations. So we're going to count that as our job site tale for the day. That's a pretty good one, ain't it? I thought it was. Anyway, let's go to a little more serious note. And we're going to talk about something, and we get into this. I don't know how long it will actually be on this subject, but we'll see. We'll let it kind of play out, kind of roll with it a little bit here and there. And the first thing I'm going to say, I'm going to make sure y'all know that what my qualifications are for talking about this subject. I was married for 26 years. So, I mean, I think I have a little bit of understanding about marriage, a little bit. But I was listening to a radio personality the other day. And of course, it was a country music station that I was listening to. I mean, that's about all I listened to, either it or classic rock. But he was talking about having been at their corporate offices one time, and he, like an executive at their corporate office, asked him, uh, how long you been married? And I don't remember the exact number. He'd been married 40 something years at the time, and he's still married. I mean, this man's long time marriage, so he's very qualified to talk about this kind of stuff, whether y'all think I am or not. But he said, the guy asked him, said, so what's the secret to a long marriage? And he was like, one word, or two words actually, go home. And that really struck a chord with me, because that's basically a little bit of my motto. I mean, it's like, go home. That's where you should be. And to talk about this a little bit, now you married couples that have been married 25, 30, 35, 40 years. Y'all don't need to listen to this. This is my, like, being Uncle Bob kind of thing, talking to everybody. But the deal about going home is you need to put your partner first. I remember when I got married, my mother gave me a piece of information, or piece of advice about being married, and I'm going to add to that a little bit. And this all goes right back to going home, and we're going to talk about that in a minute too, what I mean by go home. My mom told me, she said, never go to bed mad. And I'm going to add to that a little bit, and I'm going to tell couples out there, young married couples, never go to bed mad. If you're mad at each other, you work it out before you go to bed. And the other part to go along with that is, don't let your spouse go to bed alone. And I know some of you out there, because it's going to, when you get couples, everybody's different. You're going to have the couples that both are a morning person, so they go to bed early, get up early in the morning. Or both of them are night owls, so they're up till midnight, 1 o'clock every night. Maybe sleep in every day. Maybe their jobs don't require them to be there to 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. But inevitably, you're going to have the couples that one of them's a night owl, wants to stay up all night, and the other one's a morning person, is in bed early. I mean, that's usually, a lot of morning people tend to, I feel like, gravitate towards going to bed early too. It's like they go to bed at dark and get up at the crack of dawn. But don't let your spouse go to bed alone. To me, that is the single worst thing for a marriage. It's like, and I'm not talking about sex. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about going to bed every night together, say goodnight, talk, that kind of stuff, pillow talk, if that's what you want to say. Talk about your day, your hopes and dreams, whatever. But don't let your spouse go to bed alone. Not every night. I mean, there's going to be times when you get home and your spouse is sick and they go to bed way early, or something's come up and you're helping one of the kids do a school project, or helping a friend do a project, and a family member, and your spouse goes to bed without you. And once or twice a week, that's all right. That's not no big deal. But if y'all are going to bed at different times every night, that's going to become a problem. The other thing is social media. I mean, oh my God, that is a big problem. And cell phones. I wish, and if anybody knows, let the old bumpkin know, but I would be willing to bet that since cell phones have become more prominent in our lives, I bet divorce has too, because you've got spouses sitting over there on the couch doing their little secretive texting and phone calls because it's so easy now. I mean, it's just easy. It's unreal. And you're going to have, whether you're a male or female, you're going to have other people chasing your spouse. And if they give their phone number to them, that other guy or other girl is going to be hitting them up, texting them, calling them on the phone, that kind of shit. I mean, so you need to be aware of that shit. So social media, I think, is going to play a big part in this country the next few years, that you're going to see the divorce rate, I think, go up because that shit. And it's people putting themselves in situations that they really don't need to put themselves in, which is going to bring me back around to something else, the go home part. And I'm going to say this, people are going to disagree, and I like that. I mean, if you disagree, hit us up on Twitter, hit us up on the Facebook page, hit us up on the contacts from bumpkinbob.com. I want to hear your comments on this, but when you do things like boys' nights out or girls' nights out, you put yourself in situations, almost put yourself in situation to fail. And it's like, because the temptations are out there, people. And if you're not at home with your spouse, you're sitting out there on a bar stool or at a table with your girlfriends or your guy friend, your boyfriends. See, that doesn't work very well, does it? Because girls will say, well, I'm going out with my girlfriends, and that's cool, but guys can't say I'm going out with my boyfriends because people will look at you out the side of their face, so to speak. But you're out there with your buddies, you're putting yourself in a situation to fail, is the way I look at it. And I'm not saying people are perfect. People are not perfect, and maybe that's the whole problem. And it's like, so my deal is go home. Now, if you're one of these people that disagree, and that's fine, that's cool. I mean, that's why this world turns around, is because people don't have the same opinions. And you say, oh, well, it's all right to have night out with your friends every now and then. That's the key word too. It's kind of like drinking. You have to take it in moderation. You know, if every Wednesday night you're having a boys' night out or a girls' night out, you're going to end up falling. I'm putting it out there, because if alcohol is involved, you're going to end up with a fail. That's just how it is. You know, best case scenario, limit those things to every couple of months, every 3 months. You know, worst case scenario, once a month. And really, truly, the way you should look at it, if my spouse ain't welcome, then I'm not going to be there. You know, instead of having girls' night out or boys' night out, get you 3 or 4 couples, and y'all have a couples' night out, and do something like every other week. Meet at a Mexican restaurant somewhere and have a few margaritas and beers as a group. You know, don't do it as individuals. I'm telling you, people, you're setting yourself up to fail. And another thing I want to say, and I'm gonna direct this at the male viewers. If you're out with a group, say you got like 8 people that y'all are all good friends, 4 couples, you need to be respectful of the other females that are at your table. And, you know, there's innocent flirting, and then there's flirting that crosses the line, and you need to be aware of that. And don't cross that line with your buddy's wife, or, your your brother's wife or whatever it is. Just be aware of that. The same goes for the females. When you're out with a group, be aware of what you say to the other males that are at that table. Just realize that somebody might take something wrong at some point. Now, with that, I need to hang on a second. Got to take a little drink here. Out to the Post Winery. They'd like to send me a case of this. It's the lightly sweet table wine. It's Parachute. Just in case, I didn't know if they wanted to or not, but I really like that shit. And I'm not running for political office, so it's not a campaign fraud or campaign no or whatever. Just send that to Bumpkin Media in care of Bob, and they'll make sure I get it because I don't think nobody else likes it. Not that they're just the other people here are wine connoisseurs like I am. Anyway, thought I'd throw that out there. But anyway, that's my advice segment for the week. It's like, and I tell that because the other morning when I heard that on the radio, it just struck home with me. I've got 2 kids that are married, and basically, if they came to me and said, "Dad, what's your advice?" Or my nieces or nephews, Uncle Bob, what's your advice for a marriage? That would be my advice. Go home, limit your days out kind of stuff. Don't go to bed mad, and don't let your spouse go to bed alone. Anyway, that's pretty good advice if you ask me. Now, I'm not sure exactly where we're at on time on this little episode. I'm not sure really how long I've been talking. And you can hear my voice. I was trying to think. Oh, we have to say this. I don't know how many of y'all know this, but the U of A girls golf team just won the SEC Conference Championship. So let's give a shout out to the golf team. Now, I know a lot of people probably don't keep up with that, but anytime the U of A wins anything in the SEC, I think we should talk about it on here a little bit, at least give a passing note about it. I'm going to really upset some people here probably. No, actually, the only one's probably going to be upset about this is my daughter, but for you Dallas Cowboy fans out there, within the last 2 or 3 days of before filming this episode, Jason Witten announced that he was retiring from the Dallas Cowboys. So that means their whole receiver corps, because he's tied in, they cut Dez Bryant loose, and then Jason Witten just announced that he's retiring after 15 years, y'all. That's a long time. Played football, I think, but I'm not sure that he had another season in him or not, but he's a good guy. We wish Jason the best. Really don't think or can't think of any other news right now coming off the hill here about our beloved Razorbacks. There was some, rumblings in the news a few weeks ago about War Memorial Stadium, but it really didn't go anyplace very much. We'll keep an eye on that. If anything comes up, we'll damn sure talk about it on here because, I live up here in Northwest Arkansas now, but y'all know that I was raised down there in Pulaski and Saline County, Pulaski County mostly, but, I saw my first game at War Memorial Stadium, which was against Wichita State. And y'all, I've told that story before, and it's like I hold that stadium in high regards. I know the people up here, we argue about it all the time. They don't like it. And that, just while I brought the subject up, it's like I know there's a lot of money floating around in Central Arkansas. And believe me, I know it's a lot. I know it's a lot. But y'all, if the Waltons, I guess Bud Walton a few years ago, could come up with, did he give 20 million or 60 million to go towards that arena? I don't remember. It was one or the other. If he could come up with that by himself, I know there are some people in Central Arkansas that could get together and come up with some money to bring that stadium up to date and come up with some money to, because that's another thing the U of A is crying about. We lose $3 million every time we play in Little Rock. Well, you know, somebody come up with a fund or something that people can donate to, and it's like, here's your $3 million, shut your fucking pie hole. Play the damn ball game. My opinion is you ought to come up with a fund that we could all give to and reimburse the U of A if they'll come down there and play A-State at War Memorial Stadium and play them every year. Give A-State money, give the U of A some money to reimburse them for their supposed loss in revenue. And let's get this thing done. Now, I know y'all got some money down there. Don't be acting like you don't. Stevens! Anyway, we shall move on. Another thing that came up this week, and I'm gonna be honest, when I start getting interested in something, I may go overboard with it a little bit, just a tad. I'm surprised my producer hadn't ran in here and gone, a tad? You go overboard with it a lot, you fucking rambling ass bumpkin. Anyway, you shouldn't have said fucking. But I saw a Facebook post this year that, or this week, that got me going on something, and I had to start doing a little research, and it's like one of those things. I started doing research and started reading about something, and then I'm on the phone with my son, I'm on the phone with my son-in-law and my daughter, and I'm telling them about it. But for my family and people I know in Central Arkansas are going to remember this probably more than the people up here in Northwest Arkansas and other places in the state. But in 1987, there were two young men, two teenage boys, killed in Alexander, Arkansas, and placed on a railroad track so that the train would run over and really mess the bodies up really bad. Well, as of, I think, February, man, I read so much about this that is unreal. And I hope, or I really hope, that movie coming out about Barry Seals isn't what's fueling this. Somebody else wanting their moment in the spotlight. But a retired wrestler, who I will admit I watched in the 80s when I was still watching wrestling. And we say wrestling in the South. Professional wrestling, because we think it's professional. But he came out and basically said or confessed to being at that crime, that he was there the night those two boys got killed. Basically confessed to being a, what's the word I'm looking for? Accessory to double murder. And probably, more than likely, since this is Arkansas and we do have the death penalty here, I mean, that could be considered capital murder, because if it went down the way he says it went down, there was drugs and guns at that whole thing going on. So, I mean, there's a lot of things going to come into play about this. But the people that I know and family are going to remember this happening. and it's been a long time coming. Man, there was names that were popping up like Dan Harmon when I was reading about it, the prosecuting attorney of Saline County. Well, he was actually the family's original lawyer, and then became prosecuting attorney. And then they busted his ass for conspiracy and drug trafficking or something. He ended up doing 9 or 10 years in prison. But he came out and said he was there. And then I started listening to his interviews and what he'd written about the whole thing. And I mean, I had a problem anyway. Not a problem, but it amazed me that somebody was copping to being an accessory to double homicide anyway. I had a hard time wrapping my head around that. I mean, it's like, why would somebody, if they didn't do it, why would you admit to it? I mean, he's on video and audio and written statements that he's made to reporters down on record basically as being there. If you start reading all this stuff about him, and I'll just say his name. His name's Billy Jack Haynes, is what he wrestled as. And you start reading stuff about it, and he says that in the 70s and 80s, he was trafficking cocaine. He at the time, Barry Seals, when he got started, was out of New Orleans, and that's who he was buying his cocaine from. And then these people that were drug trafficking through Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas, were using him as muscle. And then, you start something else that kind of leads credibility to it. Barry Seals ended up living in Mena, and flying in and out of Mena, Arkansas. And it's like, oh my God, is some of this stuff really real? And it's like he's bringing up things conspiracy theorists or whatever were talking about in the 90s. I mean, when all that happened, I was still working in Central Arkansas and still lived there. And actually lived in Saline County. And, that was the rumblings around. There was conspiracy theories. Those boys saw something they weren't supposed to see while they were out hunting. And, that's basically what he's saying. That they were in Alexander for a drug drop. But, anyway, going on. Another thing that bothered me was, he says in one of his interviews that basically when they've got the boys there, that one of the members of the entourage was on their cell phone to the main guy. And, he says it's the drug trafficking governor who's state of Arkansas, but they're on the cell phone with him, and he's the one that gives the orders to kill those boys. And I was like, 1987, he's on a cell phone? I was like, not sure about that. Well, of course, one of my buddies that I'm talking to when we're discussing this whole thing and looking up information, and we read that part, he gets on his smartphone and looks it up, and is like, lo and behold, the first cell phone was available to the public in 83. And they look like bricks. First flip phones were available in 87. And I got to think, well, about 91, this old poor ass broke down person sitting in front of this camera had a cell phone. So it's like, and again, it was like a Motorola that was about this big. Look, as my son calls it, it was a brick. And it kind of was. But, I had a cell phone in 91 and was making $8-9 an hour. It's like, some guy working for a drug trafficker making hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars a year could probably afford a cell phone in 87 where I couldn't. It's like that. So, that's feasible. It became even more feasible. And it's like when you start breaking down things and you're listening to what he said happened. And actually, he said he worked his muscle for these guys when they had problems, and like he said in 87, he said he was 6'3" or 6'4" and weighed 270 pounds. He was very muscled up, very intimidating looking person. And he kind of, to me, he kind of looked like a big Macho Man Randy Savage. He was bigger than Macho Man. And he kind of had, because of the hat that he wore, he kind of had a David Allen Coe look. So, you take that however you want. We all know about David, right? Got it. But anyway, he said he was working his muscle for these people. And it's like, well, and supposedly, in his story, him and whoever else that was in that group of people were brought to Arkansas that night to kill 2 state troopers who were on the take but were also double dipping. Now, who knows? I mean, and I'll tell you, people, I'm trying to be as honest and as I can be. I mean, I don't have any facts. I don't know anything, but do I think there are crooked politicians and law enforcement officers in this state? Oh, yeah. I mean, no offense to anybody, but, and I'm just using the longtime sheriff of Madison County as an example. The county sheriffs in southern states especially, and the ruler the area is, the more prominent he is. The elected sheriff, sheriffs are law enforcement agents, but they're politicians also. You got to stop and think about that. That is an elected official. Well, they pretty much run their counties. They were different witnesses in that whole thing, pretty much also, and I don't remember his name now. I read it 50 times over the last 3 or 4 days and different things I've been reading about that story. But they were throwing the sheriff of Saline County under the bus. Now, Saline County's got Benton, which I'm not saying Benton's huge, but Benton had a pretty good population. I bet Benton had 20 or 30,000 people in it at that time. I should have looked up their population before we came on air. But also they had Bryant, had Alexander. I mean, there were some decent size. Alexander's a hole in the wall. I don't know if any of y'all ever been to Alexander, Arkansas. It's a hole in the wall. Sorry, people in Alexander, but you're a hole in the wall. But, he's been being thrown under the bus for part of that whole thing since 1987. And, if you don't think sheriffs pretty much run their counties, and I'm talking about the rural counties, like probably the closest I could think of to a sheriff that run his county, even though it had a large metropolitan area in it, was Tommy Robinson in Pulaski County. But I don't think Tommy swung the underhanded, corrupt, heavy-handed, control everything and everybody going through his county like a rural county sheriff does. And things have changed a lot. I mean, I'm talking about, historically, like through I don't know when sheriffs actually started being county sheriffs, but through the early 1900s into probably the 80s and 90s, sheriffs ran shit. Everything. So, I mean, that's possible that sheriff was involved in it. Not saying he was, but, everything that you see on the news and all of that, it's highly possible. And my next step in that whole story is kind of like, when I first heard about the Ralph Baker thing over in Madison County, getting that book, When Money Grew on Trees. Well, there's a book that was written about that whole thing. called Boys on the Tracks, and I'm gonna have to track down a copy of that and read it. And yes, Bumpkin Bob does read, so just so you know. But we're gonna get on that, and it's also amazing that you're talking about a man comes out and basically confesses to being an accessory to a double homicide, and and all the drug trafficking and the political connections that it's involved in it. You don't hear nothing about it in mainstream media. That being said, just so everybody knows that watches this, if you'll go on YouTube, you can find some links to a GoFundMe page, and one of those boys' mamas has set it up because they've hired a private investigator, and he's been looking into it, but they need help with money wise, and that's something else. I cannot believe whoever the current prosecutor is in Saline County hasn't picked this up and started doing something when he's got a confession on tape. And you can't say that law enforcement coerced it or anything else because he just put it out there. Hey, I was there. I saw it happen. I was part of that group. We were there doing a drug trade. You're an accessory, dude. If you were there and you didn't stop it, then you're an accessory. And you should be charged for that crime. It's like if you're going to cop to it and get on the internet and say you did it, then you're going to get charged with it. I mean, that's just the way it should happen. My opinion. There again, my opinion. Whew. That was a lot, wasn't it? Holy cow, we probably need another drink of wine. Donovan. You know who I'm talking about too, don't you? Yes, you do. Well, anyway. We've had a really wet month this last month. But last Sunday, the weather was great. It was beautiful here. It's probably in the high 60s, maybe low 70s. If it was in the 70s, it was in the way low 70s. Beautiful sunny afternoon. And my son-in-law got a suite at the Arkansas Naturals ballpark. And he treated me and my son, my other son and his wife, and then, of course, his wife and new son, and then his brother and his wife and little girl, and then his mom and dad, to a afternoon at the ballpark. And it was great. And it's like, number one, if you live in Northwest Arkansas, you got the Arkansas Naturals. And if you live in Central Arkansas, you've got the Arkansas Travelers. They're at Dickie Stevens Ballpark. Get out and see they're both AA. Get out and see a AA game. It will be worth it. If you can. I don't know how Dickie Stevens Park is. The suites, if you get a suite, the suites are not that expensive if a bunch of you go in together. And it's like, oh my God, that is the way to watch a baseball game. You get your own little seating area. You can have food and beverages delivered right there to you. You don't have to go down the concession stand and stand in line. They've got suite attendants that are assigned to your suite, and they'll take your order. They'll take your debit card or your cash and go get what you want and bring it back to you. I mean, it's great. You've got couches in your little suite. You got your own private bathroom. The suites, when you get those suites, they come with a certain amount of food that you get to choose from. So he had We had baked beans and coleslaw, and they had hot dogs and popcorn in the suite for us. I mean, it was part of the suite price. And then you've got your own, I think it's 12 or 13 bleacher chairs out there on the bleachers, and you're fenced off, so you're in your own private area, and you've got a TV inside because son-in-law's brother is really into NASCAR and he doesn't miss a race. So he had the race on inside the suite and just had a fantastic view. I want to give a shout out to my son-in-law for doing that. I guess it's something that, according to my daughter, he's had on his mind for a long time and wanted to do. And the only problem is I think he spoiled all of us. So I think what we ought to do is maybe a couple times a year, all of us go in together and throw in a little money and rent one of those suites, because it's just awesome. I think you can have either 12 or 13. The suite we had, I think we could have 12 or 13 people in it. So it worked out really well. Really had a good time. Oh my God, I can't tell people enough that if you'll get your family together and do things like that, it's worth it. I mean, it is really great. It's just awesome. I don't know any other way to say it. Especially if you own your own little business, you could probably write that off as a business expense. I don't know how, unless you bring some clients with you or something. I don't know, customers. If there's a way, you should find a way to do that, because that is the way to watch a ball game. Man, you get to sit up there. You can have beer brought right up there to your suite. You can chill out and watch that. It's just really awesome. Again, big shout out to my son-in-law. And you've spoiled all of us. I just want you to know that, by the way. Kind of recapping everything we've talked about. I'm tired of all the bullshit with Stormy Daniels and the Russian probe. I'm just tired of it. I'm sick of it. It's all the mainstream media covers, and they need to move on. If they quit giving these people their 15 minutes of fame, we wouldn't have to put up with all this bullshit. I got to throw this in. The state senator here in Arkansas, I'm not going to say his name, that was involved in the fraud case here with the local Christian college. It's not the one you're thinking of. It's a real small Christian college over in Springdale that he hooked them up with some stuff and they were giving him kickbacks. He got found guilty of all but 2 of his fraud charges. So kudos to the courts for that. And really and truly, there's probably more that goes on than what they can catch. But I hope they start catching a lot of it. That's just me. Trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to really elaborate on. Last weekend they held the Dogwood Festival here in Siloam. I didn't go. Ended up going to the Naturals game Sunday. But anyway, I think they had a good turnout. Y'all get a chance next year, you need to come to Siloam for that. I know I was recapping, but something else I meant to talk about. And I don't know how to say this. And I don't want to piss nobody off, but I'm sure it's going to, because I don't know how many of my family actually watch through the whole show. They may say when they hear me recapping, they may turn it off, but apparently either last weekend, I'm not sure when, was decoration at Walnut Grove where my dad's buried. At some point in the next few months, there'll be decoration at Denard Cemetery where my mom's buried. I don't know when those are. I would go to the one at Denard when Dad would call and say, Next weekend's decoration. So Saturday, we need to meet over there and clean your mama's grave. So I knew when it was. I never bothered to keep up with the dates. I'm sure they do it the same time every year. I'm just going to be a big doofus about it. Never even knew that my dad went to the one at Walnut Grove. But apparently the last few years before he passed away, he'd been going up there to that decoration. I have no idea when it even is. A cousin of mine sent me a notification on Facebook that I guess they cleaned Dad's grave and had it looking good for decoration. I don't know when decoration is. I don't live at Clinton. I don't live at Denard. I don't have any contact with anybody that, well, I guess cousins have, I don't know. Started saying I don't have contact with anybody that takes care of those cemeteries or does that stuff, but I have cousins, I guess, that are involved with the two cemeteries. I don't know nothing about that, and unless somebody calls and says, "Hey, week after next, or next week, or in a month, it's decoration in Walnut Grove or decoration in Denard," I don't know. I've said some of my sisters before, and they're not sure when it ever is. And it's like, I don't know. I don't want anybody to think we're being asinine for not going and cleaning graves. I'm sure there are some people that are pissed off because we didn't go up and clean Dad's grave, and some people that didn't that might be pissed off. We don't go clean Mom's grave. It's like, you want me to come do it, you got to tell me when it's going to be. That's just how it is. All right, so we talked about Stormy Daniels. We talked about Mueller or whatever his name is. I gave you my advice for marriage. I hope y'all take that to heart for whatever it's worth. And we talked about Billy Jack Haynes coming out and confessing to being accessory to the two boys killed on the train tracks in Alexander, Arkansas in 1987. At the very least, prosecuting attorney should file charges against him. Unless you're afraid stuff's going to come out in court that you don't want to come out in court. And with that being said, and my little rant about job sites and my little rant about cemetery stuff, this is Bumpkin Bob, and we're out of here.